Ladies and gentlemen, the Federal Reserve and the banks have just done it. Something I've been talking about at length on the channel for over a year now is something called a central bank digital currency. Now, many people were laughing at me, calling me crazy, saying this is just some conspiracy theory. Well, we have got news now that the banks have just launched their 12-week pilot program to create this digitalized dollar and this tokenized dollar, kind of like something that sounds very similar to what we just saw with the collapse of FTX. They created their FTT token that had no value whatsoever. Then they borrowed against that and used it to buy real assets. Then that ended up in disaster after their assets collapsed. The FTT token that is collapsed. Well, then they didn't have the collateral anymore to repay their loans. But also what happened is the government said, look, this is a scam. These assets, or what FTX did, their FTT token has no value. It was just created out of thin air. Well, now, just right after FTX collapsed, and it's not just FTX, we're seeing more and more other exchanges going down. We're seeing Gemini's been hit, Genesis has been hit, we've seen Voyager go down, Celsius, Terra Luna. Now the banks and the Federal Reserve and the government are about to do pretty much the exact same thing. It's just they're doing it with something different called the dollar. So in today's video, we're going to go over exactly what they just announced, exactly this program that they just launched, and how it actually is going to lead to financial tyranny, where they can dictate what you can spend your money on, where you can spend it, and they'll also be able to say, okay, at this time you can spend it, this industries, and how this is going to lead to the social credit scores that we've all been so worried about would come. So everyone, let's go to this article right now. So look at this. Banking giants and New York Fed start 12-week digital dollar pilot. Okay, now we look here. Who is involved? So the Reserve Bank of New York and participants were announced on Tuesday. So Citigroup Inc., HSBC Holdings, MasterCard, Wells Fargo are among the financial companies participating in the experiment alongside the New York Fed's Innovation Center, they said in a statement. The project, which is called the Regulatory Liability Network, will be conducted in a test environment and use simulated data, the New York Fed said. The pilot will test how banks using digital dollar tokens in a common database can help speed up payments. So again, they're all saying, look, this is a great thing, will help speed up payments. You know what happens when there's a next recession? I'm sure they'll send digital dollars to your wallet, and they're trying to say all the benefits it'll give you. But again, people, what this will lead to is creating just another currency, just like what these cryptocurrency firms do, create their tokens that have no value. And it's backed by nothing. You know, people saying, well, the FTT token was backed by nothing. Well, what is the US dollar backed by now? It's backed by absolutely nothing. It used to be backed by gold, but then they got rid of that. Okay, it used to be backed 1-for-1 for gold, then they changed it to 10-20%, but then in 1971 they took out all the gold reserves altogether, and the US dollar is worthless as well. The only reason why it has value is because the government says it has value, and we all agree that if I give you $100, I can use that $100 to go spend it to get an item that's worth $100. But eventually, people, what happens with every single fiat currency in history, they all have a 100% failure rate. And the exact same thing is going to happen with this Fed digital dollar. Because throughout history, they've all had to find ways to change the fiat currency. The US dollar today is not the same US dollar it was in the early 1900s. Again, it used to be backed by gold, it used to have a lot more value, but now the US dollar has lost over 90% of its purchasing power. But again, how exactly is this going to work? Let's have a deeper look, everyone. The project is the most significant step to date in creating a digital dollar to improve financial settlements. The Biden administration has recommended the creation of a digital dollar, and the US has recently begun putting resources into the effort. Other countries are also exploring plans to create their own digital currency, CBDCs. Yes, we saw China, they've announced their central bank digital currency, and we're seeing the kind of financial tyranny they can use on their citizens. They create the central bank digital currency, and they say, okay, this is where you can spend it in this economic zone at this time, And they also have expiry dates. So they can create this money, send it to you and say, you have to spend it. Otherwise, this money is going to expire in 3 months, 6 months time. This is something kind of like what they could do with negative interest rates, or it's like negative interest rates, meaning you're losing purchasing power if you don't spend it without actually having negative interest rates. The proof of concept project is a 12-week effort that will test the feasibility of a digital money platform called the Regulatory Liability Network. So if you start to hear this RLN put around, you know this is a regulatory liability network. It will use a distributed ledger like blockchain technology behind Bitcoin, and the goal is to improve financial settlements and will involve central banks, commercial banks, and regulated non-banks. So again, what's going to happen is you're going to have these commercial private central banks, not federal banks, not government banks. You're going to have the Bank of International Settlements in on this. You're going to have the big US major banks in on this, and they're going to control how, when, and where we use our money. And that means they'll be able to track every single cent you make. If you get a gift, or if you sell something at a garage sale, you sell something on Marketplace, you sell something on Gumtree, or if you sell something on Craigslist, they will be able to track every cent you make so they can tax every single penny they can. Because we all know the US government is bankrupt right now, so they're definitely going to try to find a way to increase their tax revenue. That's why they're hiring this army of IRS agents. Now listen to this. This sounds exactly like these cryptocurrency tokens. The US dollar will be represented as tokens and settled through simulated central bank reserves on a shared distributed ledger. The pilot will be conducted in a test environment and will use technology provided by SETL and digital asset. Now, people, also another thing that I think is a bit of a coincidence, this was announced just a week after FTX collapsed. Now, we all know how Sam Bankman-Fried, he was very, very close with government officials. He donated millions of dollars to the Democratic Party. He donated $5 billion to the Biden administration. Yes, they did also donate some money to Republicans, but it was majority Democrats. And really what they were trying to do was buy politicians on both sides of the political spectrum. And also he was very connected. His parents were both professors of law. He was also connected with his partner, or his ex-partner, Caroline. Her father was the boss of Gary Gensler, who is now the Security and Exchange Commission chairman, and who had frequent meetings with Sam Bankman-Fried. We saw how they worked with Ukraine to set up the donations for cryptocurrency to be sent to Ukraine that went through all the way to their central bank to be converted into their own currency. So this is very, very fishy how this is all happening at the same time. Hey, maybe it's just a coincidence, but what I think it is central banks and the government, they will not let cryptocurrency compete with them. If people think that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is going to become the new globalized currency of the world, or the new world reserve currency, think again, people. These governments, these central banks, they will not let it happen. They will destroy, or they will try to destroy cryptocurrency. They won't be able to destroy Bitcoin because it is the only real cryptocurrency. It is the only real decentralized cryptocurrency. We're having no entity at the top or no one person controlling it, but they're going to regulate it, and they're going to make it very, very difficult to compete with their digital dollar. Now, again, you may be thinking, well, this is just a great innovation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This will make settlements faster, easier, more convenient. And yes, maybe it will have some benefits, but also something I'm very, very worried about and very, very concerned about what it'll lead to is debanking. What we're seeing right now is huge censorship. And what is now beginning is something called financial censorship, or financial tyranny, where, say, for example, if you say something politically incorrect, you post something on social media that goes against the government agenda, you question things. Well, what happened before was you would just get your social media account deleted. But do you know what's happening now with recent controversial figures? They're not just getting their social media accounts deleted, they're getting their assets frozen at the banks. We've seen this with people like Kanye West. We've seen this with people like Andrew Tate. Not that I agree with everything they say, but what this is going to lead to is, if you say anything against the government, or if you ask too many questions, not only will you get your social media accounts deleted or frozen, your bank accounts are going to get frozen as well. Like what we saw with the Canadian truckers. People that just donated to try to help these truckers, they had their accounts frozen. And this is what I'm so worried about. And this is why I keep making these videos about this central bank digital currency. Because if we don't tell the governments, hey, we don't like this, we don't want this, we'll just be like lambs walking to the slaughter. Because once our freedoms are gone, people, there is no getting them back. And you know the old saying that goes, if you give up a little bit of freedom for safety and security, you'll end up having neither. But everyone, what do you think about this? Let me know down below. Now, for all my loyal viewers and subscribers still watching, you're awesome. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.